All right, everyone, we start out today talking about Beijing Biden's approval collapsing. It actually fell down even further after the initial collapse in the wake of the Afghan withdrawal clearly not going well. He had the opportunity to come out and give a final speech to sort of wrap things up, take responsibility for his mistake, which is what, a wise person would have done. Instead, he blamed everyone else. The problem is that he's still hemorrhaging support in part because a few people, independent voters mainly, I'm sure, not Democrat partisans, Soccer Mom America, aka the Democratic majority, they watch CNN, they have no idea this happened. But Biden lied to the entire nation with regards to the readiness of the Afghan forces. That doesn't look very good. And so now he's 3.5 points underwater with approval below 46. His disapproval is approaching 50%. This means that virtually no Republicans support him. Virtually no independents support him. At least those that don't lean left. Even they're starting to sour on Biden's agenda to the point where the mandate has dried up enough that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are basically putting the brakes on the infrastructure bill right now. Wise decision. If I were Manchin or Sinema, I would throttle the life out of Biden's policy, and I would deliberately stand in the way, let him fucking primary me, because by the time the midterms roll around, Biden's approval will be non-existent. I can basically run as the sane voice in the party to a constituency that's not largely leftoid anyway, and win. So, I mean, the Democrats that are talking about trying to get rid of Manchin and Sinema, they're not going to succeed. This is just more evidence that the Democrats lurch off a far left cliff because they don't know anything about strategy. Likewise, the Republicans have revived the abortion issue, unwittingly, I think, and that's going to be fodder to the leftoids in the midterms. So at least people in far blue districts, Dems there, or those that avoid the Biden agenda, they'll do probably a lot better than the Democrats that are caught in the middle. That's going to hurt them even more, ironically enough, while it also hurts certain Republican groups. I wouldn't expect it to do anything towards the populistic Trump side, but if I was a rhino right now, if I was Mitt Romney, I'd be a little bit worried. I really would. Couldn't be better. Situation couldn't be better going into the midterms. But anyway, first and foremost, if you're watching this video on YouTube, keep in mind there will be a pinned comment down below with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. I'm also on Twitch, so you can follow me there. Link in the description to that. Keep in mind all my live streams are there, not just on YouTube anymore. Thinking about branching out further, Odyssey, Rumble, and so forth as well. Maybe other D Live. Keep in mind I make 2 exclusive one-off videos a day, though, that are on those 4 sites that I don't put on YouTube. Because YouTube has a lot of subjects you're not allowed to talk about, a lot of opinions you're not allowed to express. The era of broadcast yourself ended a while ago, so now you have to use alternatives that are more free speechy. Anyway, I can't think of anything that's going right now. You still have, the COVID thing is probably being brought to the fore more than anything else right now by Biden. When he comes out at all, he still doesn't answer questions because he knows that nobody gives a shit about COVID. Did you see the presser last night? I reacted live to it. Once again, does a 180, back-turner Biden walks out of the room after giving a fairly brief address, which by the way, he was not nearly as late for as Psaki was for hers, but he was still like a half an hour late, which keeps happening. I'm going to keep their toes to the fire and keep reacting to them. I keep ratioing the White House, so I'm pretty proud of that fact. More people would rather watch commentary about Biden than watch Biden. That's the long and short of it. People like interaction too, so I think having the live chat open is slightly helpful there. We have a border crisis. That's not been addressed, really. The legacy media doesn't even ask about this because they've been distracted by Afghanistan. As far as domestic issues go, the biggest one is the border. We still have hundreds of thousands of people lined up at the southern border. We've got people coming in, we don't know who they are. We've got a porous border where the border wall that was being constructed has been abandoned. Although Biden belatedly and begrudgingly decided to complete the retrofitting of some of the fence and wall that was already there, electronic monitoring, especially seismic and drone related. That's perfectly fine, but there are still plenty of gaps there. We can't even process like legal immigrant paperwork right now. The backlog there is literally more than a year delay. But at the same, and then we got to process hundreds of people who technically shouldn't be even capable of applying for refugee status, and in the meantime they just wander off. It's like basically worse than catch and release. I would say that's the biggest domestic issue. A close second is the economy, because inflation is still high. Joblessness is now inching its way back up, arguably. Name a thing that's going right now. Oil prices continue to rise. Biden, did you find, this was even funnier. Biden really fucking up with this one. How do you piss off both the leftoids and everyone else who's awake in the country and doesn't hate fossil fuel at the same time? You say that you're going to free up strategic oil reserves and move it into place in the Louisiana region hit by Ida in order to keep the oil prices down while canceling Keystone XL and doing everything that you can to try to prevent drilling permitting from going forward. Which, by the way, there was an injunction on some of Biden's worst efforts there, probably saving the economy considerably, actually, because the courts got involved and said, no, you can't unilaterally cancel all these pre-agreed upon exploratory leases and stuff because the paperwork's already signed. What the fuck are you doing? That alone will keep the gas prices 5-10 cents lower probably. The courts saved you from the worst of the Bidenflation with regards to fuel. By the way, what does oil price rising have to do with the economy? Well, literally everything, because all of the machinery, the trucks, the shipping, literally it's all tied to the oil industry. That natural gas, which are joined at the hip anyway. You attack the energy industry, literally everything becomes more expensive. It's not just about, well, demand is surging and the supply can't keep up, so the cost has risen. Partially, that's not the only reason that you have that. It's not the only reason for inflation right now. There are other causes, like Joe Biden's economy being weak. Joe Biden hyper-regulating as much as he can as quickly as possible. By the way, to this day, despite the fact that in the back rooms they're undoing all of Trump's deregulation paperwork, have they ever once taken credit for that? Has Biden come out on TV and told the leftoids, hey, by the way, all those regulations Trump peeled back on businesses and on land usage, I'm putting them all back as quickly as I can? Of course not, because nobody would support it other than hippy-trippy people, and that's not even his main constituency. Biden's approval now is almost 3.5 points underwater and still falling, arguably. His approval is mediocre at just under 46. Most popular president ever, 80 million votes, infinite scoops of ice cream. Some of that buyer's remorse is coming from Afghanistan. That's probably among right-leaning independents that jumped off the Trump train for one reason or another. That's the bulk of that. As far as the COVID response, it's a broad but small sampling. I think most of it has to do with a combination of the economy. It's the money, stupid. That and the fact that the Trump derangement syndrome's wearing off. One thing that's hurting Biden, this is the irony, is Trump's absence. The fact that Trump's not on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and shit like that, the fact that mainly the people interacting still with his content are still fans of his, that they're not fans of Biden, presumably, and a handful of pundits that keep reeing every time he speaks. Oh my God, we got to do more to silence him even more. That's hurting Biden. Because one tendency Trump had that was very endearing to some people but very grating to others was constant tweet storms and constantly putting himself out there. That gave Biden the ability to step back, which he already does anyway. He's called hiding Biden for a reason. I call him back-turner Biden at this point because he won't even talk to the legacy media and has Psaki lie repeatedly to them and avoid answering any substantive questions. Anyway, what would happen is Trump comes out, says something that gets the news cycle going, riles people up. Biden then is justified in hiding because nobody's going to be hearing what he says anyway. Why do you think yesterday he gave the presser at such an odd time in the middle of a weekday? He doesn't want people to watch it. Again, there were like 1,500 people were watching the White House live stream at peak. There were over 4,000 people at peak watching me. They do this on purpose. When they have difficult things to talk about, they manipulate the schedule so that fewer people will even see the goddamn address. Sure, it was on like C-SPAN and stuff like that. How many people actually tuned in? Even like the coverage of it, it's like, okay, Fox, MSNBC, CNN stuff, they get more viewers, but even then, it's not exactly a primetime slot now, is it? Oh, the American people tune in over the dinner hour at 6 o'clock to watch Beijing Biden. No, he's not going to appear then. He'll appear at 1 o'clock. He'll appear when people are at work. He doesn't want people to hear what he has to say. He wants to avoid that as much as possible. Ironically, his approval collapse is partially the result of Trump's absence in the popular culture. You got to realize, the Democrats are the soccer mom party at this point. Soccer mom America watch CNN and shit like that. They go to their 9 to 5s and at the end of the day, they're a bunch of NIMBYists. They want other people to pay more taxes. They don't want to. They want more green energy, but not in their backyard and shit like that. They've been lied to and their heads twisted around. And now they're basically a horde of lemmings. These people, by and large, aren't going to change their minds about Biden, but that's a minority of the population. Dem partisans, by and large, will support him. Leftoids have gotten off the Biden bus, which is broken down by the side of the road. Independents are fleeing him. That leaves him with a broad core coalition that is not particularly large. It's probably about 40% of the population, maybe not even that much. He's still losing support. Until the economy gets notably better, he won't even stabilize. Afghanistan, within another week or so, will fall out of the news cycle entirely. The American people have a very short attention span. The problem is you still have inflation and the border crisis. Those are, I think, the two big ones. And again, just the fact that the Trump derangement syndrome thing is no longer really a thing, except in echo chambers like Twitter or on Reddit. Well, that's not soccer mom America. These people don't get to see any complaints about Trump because Trump, to the minds of CNN and MSNBC, Trump is now silent, so you can talk about other issues. While they're talking about the leftoids constantly rambling about how bad Biden is because he won't do more green energy, he won't do UBI, he won't do universal pre-K and all of this stuff, and now Manchin and Sinema smell blood in the water. Like the sharks they are, and I'm not, insulting them for this, they're representing their proper constituencies. West Virginia and Arizona are not heavily blue states. They're throwing Biden under the bus. Did you see Manchin the other day say, well, maybe we need to hit pause on this infrastructure bill and talk about it some more? Whoops. See, the problem is that you won't have the votes in the Senate to pass it if you try to ram it through right now. So now that's on pause too. This is his signature legislation. This is the equivalent of the ACA. Biden has a big problem. He no longer has a mandate. If I'm Joe Manchin, I'm like, well, my constituency's red anyway. A lot of the people that vote for me, ultimately, they're Republicans. If I side with Biden on this huge spending bill and this ups inflation and brings forth Green New Deal and stuff, that's something I would normally not be really happy about doing anyway, but more so, why would I want to do it when the person championing it, which is Biden, doesn't even have public support anymore? Well, now he's down in the mid-40s and still falling. I think Manchin's going to wait to see where he bottoms out to decide whether he even wants to fucking vote for the bill. Wouldn't it be funny if it gets sent back to committee and stripped down even further so that $3.5 trillion becomes $1.5 trillion or something? The Green New Deal bullshit is stripped out of it. Maybe the crypto bullshit, that they're trying to corporatize crypto. It'd be fun to see Biden's signature legislation get cut to pieces and watered down like the ACA was. It'd be really, really funny to see the fallout from that. That's about all. Peace out.